Shortly after the in-out EU referendum, there was a legal court battle. Now, this battle was one of the reasons it took 6 months for Theresa May to trigger Article 50. Article 50 being the 2-year process by which we had to negotiate our exit, which we totally didn't waste our time on. And we're not totally still in the EU now. The court case concerned a lady called Gina Miller. Gina Miller is an ardent Ramona. When she took the government to court, she took them to court under the premise that the court should force MPs, or the government, to let MPs vote on whether or not to trigger Article 50. She won, by the way. The government's lost in court a few times during Theresa May's premiership, which will be coming to an end, by the way, this Saturday. Well, Gina Miller, yet again, while maintaining her stance that she'll definitely pursue legal action over every tiny little detail concerning Brexit that doesn't go her way, being the epitome of a Ramona that will go to any length possible to get what she wants, has written to Boris Johnson. She wrote to Boris Johnson, her lawyers did anyway, under her instruction, the lawyers being called Mishcon de Rea, under the pretense that he'll be the next Prime Minister, but also to say that Gina Miller believes a no deal to be constitutionally unacceptable and unlawful, which would force them to take legal action against the UK government. I'm now going to quote some passages from that letter. Such powers cannot be exercised in a manner which is contrary to fundamental constitutional principles. It would seriously undermine parliamentary sovereignty for you, as Prime Minister, potential, to prorogue Parliament to prevent it from considering whether to legislate to prevent a no-deal Brexit. Prorogue being a term that cropped up when Dominic Raab said he would do this, which meant to suspend Parliament so they could not force legislation through to ban a legal default. You would be closing the doors of Parliament to prevent it from legislating on the most important political issue of the day when time is of the essence. In such circumstances, it would be unlawful for you as Prime Minister to advise Her Majesty to prorogue Parliament for the purpose of preventing Parliament from considering the enactment of a law to stop the UK leaving the EU without a deal. Many MPs from all parties, let's call it cross-party groups, are trying to find a way to stop no deal. They're trying to block it. Dominic Grieve being the most recent, as we know from a video I believe I did last week. Many asking for a further extension, something which I believe the soon-to-be new EU president, Ursula something German, has said that provided they come up with a good reason, she could in fact grant. However, the part that causes issues is that Boris Johnson has said we must leave on the 31st of October with or without a deal. Jeremy Hunt has ruled out suspending Parliament, which is why the letter wasn't sent to him. Boris Johnson, though, no, he has not done that. He won't do it. Now, to add to this, the legal battles, former Prime Minister Sir John Major said he himself would be willing to go to court to seek a judicial review to stop Johnson from proroguing Parliament, with him being quoted as saying, "I served in Parliament for over 20 years. I am very proud to have done so. I have huge admiration for our parliamentary tradition, which is why many people forget that you're the reason we started to lose powers within the EU because you gave away so many of them during your, I believe, 7 years in charge. Let's strip away the jargon of proroguing and contemplate what this actually means. What it means is that a Prime Minister, presumably Prime Minister Johnson, because he cannot persuade Parliament to agree with his policy, will close down Parliament so that he can bypass it until his policy comes into operation. Now, nobody has done this since the Stuart era, and it didn't end well, and it shouldn't end well. You cannot and should not bypass Parliament in this fashion, and I cannot imagine how anyone could conceivably think that it is right. Let's talk about this briefly. You don't get your own way, so you do something stupid. Now, I've heard this somewhere before. Oh, that's right. When the UK government decided to airstrike a bunch of supposed chemical weapons factories and ammo caches and other nonsense in Syria, which were later proven to be not that at all, because the UN, when they voted on this, Russia voted against it. So the UK government decided to do it anyway, because they believed Russia was in cahoots with Assad and that be bad, because chlorine gas in a very hot place is, like, dangerous, and totally not going to vanish very quickly. Sounds very familiar. I do tend to take the stance, and I should agree, that it is wrong for government to shut Parliament down to get policy through. I think the problem with Brexit is it brings up a rather large problem, in that Parliament itself cannot reach consensus, so they're just trying to stop it at every opportunity. Labour are going to lose a lot of seats at the next UK general election, so are the Conservatives if Brexit isn't delivered upon, because many of whom come from constituencies that voted leave, but the MPs are trying everything they can to keep us in. Gina Miller, John Major, go to court with them, take them to court. It actually just gives me more content. It would be amazing. I don't agree the government should shut Parliament down, but I can understand why they would want to if they're trying to stop us leaving the EU, and it is a legal default that we leave the EU. So trying to prevent it seems counter to the best interests of the country that voted leave.